Number 10, we have a potential ghost sighting from MasterBucks YouTube. For his Halloween special, MasterBucks decided to check out a house that his friends said had been abandoned for a month. According to his source, the construction workers assigned to the house refused to return after several injuries occurred mysteriously on site. The house has been sitting empty for a month, and so MasterBucks decided, you know, why don't I take this opportunity to check it out and see if I get scared. What happens next is something no one really expected. For the first bit of the video, it seems to be more entertaining than actually scary, but until 5.5 minutes in, he freezes, and I could hear breathing like right next to the camera, which was really far away from him. He immediately gets spooked and leaves the premises. Did you hear what he heard? Let us know in the comments. So coming in at number 9, we have this video from YouTube Gem Parks. Now, okay, this video kind of made me want to cry because when I first saw it I was like, what is that? But I have to admit it really doesn't take much. It's unclear as to where exactly this property is, but this explorer and YouTuber seems to have encountered something strange. About a minute into this video, you can see on the right hand corner in the doorway some small kind of creature peering around the corner. But when he turns the corner, there's nothing there, not even some object that could have been resembled like a broomstick or a coat hanger or anything like that. Then at around 2 minutes in, some kind of shadowy woman is shown tucking in the corner. Could it be the same creature we saw earlier or something else? Now, you may take a chance and go exploring an abandoned house at night in the hopes that you'll find a ghost, but unfortunately you get out unscathed, or so you think. Coming in at number 8, this cameraman thought he missed out on a ghostly encounter while exploring this abandoned building. He was wrong. YouTuber Derelict Mafia went out to explore the abandoned Westboro State Hospital to see who he might meet. When he got back home to review the footage, he noticed these two bright eyes following him. If you watched the video the first time, you could totally miss it, so I completely understand his oversight the first time. At first, I considered whether they could have been a cat or nocturnal animal of some kind whose eyes tend to glow in the dark, but could one be hanging from something on the ceiling? But the eyes appear to be almost too centered in the hallway, as if instead they belong to a person just standing there. We can't, of course, be sure. Now, this next one's for all my fairy folklore fans. It's not a ghost this time. Surprise! Coming in at number 7, we have a potential fairy encounter. Now, for those who think fairies are mostly the friendly kind that live in Neverland, may I introduce you to the folklore of the Fae. Beings of great power that delight in trapping lost travelers in winding forests through tricks and pranks. Many fear coming across them, but apparently not YouTuber Erwin Sanders. While exploring this otherwise empty forest, Erwin describes this sighting as the first real fairy encounter. Now, right away, Erwin seems like the kind of person who would attract magical forest creatures. I mean, look at him, he's literally the sweetest person. So it's almost no surprise when a tiny humanoid-like creature begins spying on him. If you look carefully, you can see the fairy begin to pop his head over the brush right over his left shoulder. Now, it's unclear which forest he's in specifically, but apparently according to fairy lore, fairies could be anywhere waiting, even in your own backyard. So next time you go wandering the woods, abandoned or otherwise, think about whether you are really alone. Coming in at number 6, we have the murder room. YouTubers Sam and Colby returned to an abandoned warehouse to return a box that they sold previously from a place in the warehouse called the murder room. When they enter, the YouTubers report feeling heavier and brought up memories of the last time they were there. Doors slammed, birds attacked them, you know, all other strange happenings. But then, around 14 minutes in, they begin to hear chanting approaching the building.
Oh my god. Here. Take this.
It's really creepy. It's this like ethereal church chanting. The chanting is eerie, and the explorers report they could see the group beginning to set up some kind of ritual? What? Terrified, the YouTubers then try to make their escape, hoping to remain unnoticed. As they exit the building around 18 minutes in, they hear a massive bang.
Let's just watch that.
Did we just say that was the creepiest thing that's ever happened to us in our entire life?
Dude, I'm...
Sending them bolting away from the house. Who knows what could have happened? They definitely didn't run into any ghosts, but perhaps they ran into something a lot more sinister. But honestly, I'm kinda glad we didn't find out what. Number 5! YouTubers exploring with fighters found something so shocking they had to call the police. Coming in at number 5, we have this video which shows a chilling discovery. This is the second time these urban explorers have visited this property and returned after so much hype from their first video after all of the strange occurrences they experienced last time. They reportedly found a Santa doll through a hole in the wall and messages from spirits in the house that potentially showed evidence of demons. Now in this video, they've returned in order to see if the messages were true, and now here's where it gets creepy. The further they dug into the wall, they eventually found something that shook them to their core.
Especially, after the Romania series, I didn't think anything could top that. But I think this will.
Wait. Don't touch that. This is now a crime scene.
Human remains. They called the police immediately and left the scene after speaking to them. This video is surreal in what they didn't actually come across a ghost. Can anyone deny that they might have been sent messages to find whoever was left behind the wall? Coming in at number 4, we have a ghost sighting filmed by YouTuber Freaktography. In March 2016, while exploring an abandoned house in Ontario, Canada, Freaktography caught something that can't quite be explained. When I first watched this video, I totally missed it, but after it slowed down, boggled. Now at first this video didn't seem very creepy to me, but then once I saw it, it sent my mind whirling. Did you see it? As the video slows, a translucent shape flows past the screen in a blur. I'm not sure what could explain such a strange shape. Could it be dust or a bug even? But one thing is for sure is that even after watching it several times, whatever it is, it's not easy to explain. So now we're reaching the top 3, and before we do, I just want to remind you guys to give us a like and a follow and a subscribe and a comment and tell us that you love us in some way or shape or form, because it really means a lot to us. And just to let you know, as we go to the top 3, I had to touch on these 3 places that are just so creepy, that have so much of following that they're guaranteed to be haunted, and you're guaranteed to experience something when you visit. So check out. Next up, at number 3, we have Poveglia Island. Again, this is another place where you are guaranteed to encounter something you'll never forget. Poveglia Island in Italy used to be a hospital for all those with the bubonic plague, and that over 160,000 corpses were burned to ashes and thrown into mass graves. After that, it became a mental asylum, apparently ran by a malicious doctor who performed experiments on his patients. He reportedly was driven mad by the ghosts of those he tortured, and he threw himself off the clock tower. Unfortunately, the island has been shut down, and anyone who trespasses can receive criminal fines, but that doesn't stop people from taking a boat and getting as close as possible. Those who do report hearing blood-curdling screams, heartbreaking laments, and other strange noises. Some even hear the bell toll from across the bay, though it was removed years before. But the strangest thing is that scientists have recorded a powerful electromagnetic field surrounding the entire island, but there's no electricity. Coming in at number 2, we have the abandoned fort of Bangalore, India. This is said to be the most haunted place in all of India and is strongly believed to be cursed. This historical ruin has accumulated so many stories that no one is allowed to enter the fort at night for fear that they may never come back. 2 people have gone missing for just that, and though a third was recovered, they mysteriously died on their way to the hospital in a sudden crash. Another group of teens broke the rules and reported seeing a young boy sitting alone in a room, except there were no accessible doors or windows to access it, so how did he get inside? As for why the place is cursed, there are 2 prominent stories. One involves a magician who tried to trick a princess he loved, though went horribly wrong, and another involving a guru who cursed the entire town where the fortress resides. But one thing's for sure, if you do ever dare to visit, don't trespass at night. Coming in at number 1, we have a poltergeist house in the Isle of Wight. Year after year, well except maybe this one, tourists flock to the historic lands of the UK, and many ghost hunters make sure to visit the Isle of Wight, also known as the Isle of Fright. Known by tourists as a picturesque place of beauty for its near untouched green landscape, but the lore surrounding it has dozens of people claiming to have seen and heard things they will never forget. One such place that has people running for the hills is the Poltercombe House, a grand picturesque mansion that sadly remains a shell of what it once was. It was destroyed during World War II, but many have reported sightings of ghost carriages, monks, and strange lights filling the house. As there are too many encounters to count, this site is considered the most haunted place on the Isle of Wight, or Fright, as most call it.
Let's get this list started in at number 10 with the Hot Mansion. This abandoned mansion is located in Brush Park, Michigan. Back in 1941, it was used as an upscale brothel, but years after it was initially opened, a ton of dead bodies were found in the cellar of the mansion. All of the dead bodies were marked with a perfect circle on their torso and chest areas. The murderer was never found, and no one knows why they committed these gruesome murders. All we know for certain is that this mansion is full of angry spirits, and anyone who steps foot in this abandoned mansion will have a pretty rude awakening. But of course, people don't listen to the warnings, and they decide to check out the haunted mansion for themselves. Once they got inside, they reported feeling a cold chill brush over them. They said that they can hear screams coming from the basement and weird footsteps coming towards them. Take my advice and never visit the haunted mansion. If you do, I'm sure you'll instantly regret it. You'll go in there and you'll be like, is this real life right now? And for you guys older fans watching this video, I think that's a drink. I think that's a shot for you guys. I don't know, you guys came up for the game, and I'm just here to make it more fun. The Nova House creeps onto this list at number 9. A man named Benjamin Albright accidentally shot and killed his son in 1958 in this house. He was filled with grief and regret, so he decided to kill his wife and then kill himself. I'm not sure how you accidentally kill your son, and I don't know why he thought that killing his wife would improve the situation. But since these brutal murders, the home came abandoned ever since. But if you were to visit this house, you would see that some of the family stuff is still inside. But I think I have better things to do with my time, than to explore a decrepit house where a family was killed. But that's just me. And of course, there are people on YouTube who thought it would be a good idea to look inside for themselves.
Then from down below. Lot of debris from this ceiling. There's room number 2. Ooh, a little soft right there.
Number 8 brings us to San Z UFO houses in Taiwan. These strange looking houses were originally intended to be used as a vacation resort, but this idea quickly failed. Several car accidents, deaths, and even suicides happened in this location during construction, so this project was never completed. There have been a lot of ghost sightings, and locals say that these UFO houses are extremely haunted. No one should ever go inside these buildings, because if you do, you will never be the same when you leave, if you leave. But of course, people don't listen to these cautionary tales, and they decide to do some exploring of their own.
You can peek inside. Some of the windows are blown out too. So here's the living room, the old television there, and then that was the kitchen there in the center. And then if I pan to the right through there, you can see there's a bedroom, and then on the other side is the bathroom.
Some people even believe that these houses belong to the spirits that haunt this area, and many of them are evil and have a lot of unfinished business to take care of. Number 7, the Willard Asylum. The Willard Asylum was called an asylum because it was more like a prison. Patients were kept until the staff decided that they can leave. And sadly, many of them, well, they never left. They were never released. During that time, mental health was not understood very well. Some of the people who were locked inside weren't actually insane. If I was in there, I would definitely become insane. More than half of the 50,000 patients that came to the Willard Asylum died within its walls. And this is what makes the old abandoned buildings so creepy. In 1995, hundreds of suitcases were found in the attic, and they belonged to the patients who never left. As it turns out, these suitcases were stowed away and forgotten about for decades. It's sort of a creepy reminder of all the former patients that were locked away and forgotten about, by the outside world. That gives me the creep, so let's move on. Miranda Castle climbs up this list at number 6. During World War II, the Miranda Castle was used as an orphanage, but it was abandoned in 1980, and since then, it has been decaying ever since. It's extremely popular with ghost hunters because of its gruesome and dark past. The architect died while it was under construction, and his death still remains as a mystery. A devastating fire broke out, and it damaged a major portion of the roof and other parts of the castle, and no one knows how the fire started. A violent storm hit the castle in 2006, which caused further damage to the property. And now teenage delinquents, homeless people, paranormal hunters, I'm sure some YouTubers, and Satanists frequently explore this decrepit building. I think knowing that Satanists are coming here to perform their rituals is scary enough for me. I wouldn't go anywhere near this building even if you paid me, unless it was like 30 grand. I think think I'd do it for 30 grand. Next up, number 5, we have the haunted vicarage in Sweden. This might look like an innocent farmhouse, but trust me, it has a dark past. Or it wouldn't have been on this list. It was built in 1876, and ever since then, it had been known to be an extremely haunted house. Many people who've been inside claim that they've seen the ghost of a woman in the house, and paranormal activities happen all the time. In 1941, a woman who visited this house woke up at night and realized that she wasn't alone. 3 old women were sitting in her room staring at her in the dark. Once they turned on the light, the 3 ghosts were still there, but they were extremely blurry. And in 1945, a man bought a rocking chair and brought it inside. However, he was never able to sit on it because it was thrown out of the window by an aggressive invisible force. But despite all of these scary stories, all these poor souls decided to go inside of this creepy building anyways.
Vill du hjälpa oss med det igen? Kan du sätta dig ner på soffan och få den där speldosan att spela igen?
I don't know what was making that sound, but I know I wouldn't be sticking around long enough to find out. I mean, I'm not that curious. The axe murder house in Iowa slashes its way in at number 4. On the night of June 10th, 1912, 6 members of the Moore family and 2 house guests were found bludgeoned to death inside of this creepy house. All 8 of the victims had evidence that they were struck with an axe. A long investigation was done, but after 2 trials, the crime still remains unsolved, and no one knows who this axe murderer is. But now, for a small fee, well, you could choose between a range of daylight and overnight tours. So yeah, you can visit this murder house, but I don't see why anyone would want to. It's so weird that we are commercializing a gruesome murder in an abandoned house. We should all just let them rest in peace, but some sick person is cashing in some serious money. So I guess we should take a look inside from the comfort of our own house to, you know, let's check out what the hype's all about.
It was his superstition that if you did something evil and you knew it was evil, you couldn't look at yourself in a mirror. So he covered all the mirrors in the house and all the windows as well. And this up here is supposedly an axe mark. And in a way it would make sense because Josiah, who was on the side of the bed right here closest to the dresser, was hit with the sharp end of the axe. He was the only one to be killed with the sharp.
Now at number 3 we have the Beechworth Lunatic Asylum. Try saying that 3 times fast. This is an extremely haunted psychiatric hospital that is located in Victoria, Australia. By the time that they finally closed its doors in 1995, a ton of patients have died during the 128 years that it was in operation. Apparently the psychiatric hospital brutally treated their patients, and a lot of the time patients would physically be tortured and abused, and they had little hopes of escaping. The patients were subjects to straitjackets, restrained chairs, and isolated cages. Oh, and let's not forget about the lobotomies and electroshock treatments that were used as well. So it's no wonder why this place is incredibly haunted with angry spirits. People say that they've seen a young girl wandering the halls, and she desperately tries to communicate with anyone that she comes into contact with. I can't believe that people actually step inside of a place like that.
You got that weird noises randomly, and just all the creepy sounds you hear. Oh, so this is what the rooms used to look like. Yeah, that's creepy.
Ancient Ram Inn takes us to number 2. This creepy house is located in Gloucestershire, England. And let me know if I pronounced that right. I don't know how you're gonna tell me if I pronounced it right in the comment section below. Well, the owner claims that it is one of the most haunted places on earth. A lot of scary paranormal stuff goes on inside of these walls. People have reported seeing lights flickering and ghostly figures walking around the inn. A local legend says that the paranormal power comes from the center of the stone hedge, and it's actually fueling this place with spiritual energy. There's also a pagan burial ground that is located beneath this inn that makes this place just 100 times more creepy. Oh, and I forgot to mention that this place is supposedly haunted with evil demons that are just waiting to take your soul.
The ancient Ram Inn was built in 1145. Today, it continues its existence as one of the most haunted buildings in the whole of England, if not the world. It's notorious.
Now upstairs in the attic. It's very, very creepy. So just behind me, back here, I can't actually go further than this because the ground is so unstable, it's kind of dangerous, so they don't let people go past there. And then if I turn around, behind me is actually where the former daughter's bedroom was. I'm not sure how old she was when she slept up here, but it's so scary up here that I'm not sure I would like it as my bedroom.
And now, topping our list at number 1, we have the Monte Cristo homestead, which is located in New South Wales, Australia. This place is known as the most haunted house in Australia because there are hundreds of creepy reports each year. Strange lights, creepy ghosts, slamming doors, unexplained animal mutilations, and weird sounds are just a few things you can expect to see when you visit the Monte Cristo house. Several brutal murders occurred in this house, and to top it all off, it used to be a prison for a mentally impaired man. But wait, there's more. While it was in operation, a pregnant woman was pushed over a balcony, a baby was thrown down the stairs, and a stable boy was burned to death while he was sleeping. Is this real life right now? It is said that if you take pictures here, ghosts will appear in your photo, and it feels like someone, or I should say something, is watching you. You will also feel hands touching you and strange footsteps. Yeah, no thanks, not for this, brown guy. I think I value my life way too much to ever visit this creepy house.
Coming in at number 10, we have the Tower of London. Ah, the Tower of London, the scene of much betrayal and bloodshed. There aren't enough hours in the day to list the amount of ghosts said to haunt this royal fortress on the banks of the River Thames. The tower has been the prison and death spot of some of the most famous people in British history, including Henry VIII's wife Anne Boleyn. She is said to haunt the tower to this day. Also, haunting the tower are 2 young princes who were killed on the orders of Richard III. The 2 youngsters appear most frequently to other children who visit the tower on school trips. The most dramatic ghost of the Tower of London, though, is the ghost of the Countess of Salisbury. Now, she had a very grisly death there indeed. She broke free of her executioner, who instead of chopping off her head, hacked her up with an axe. She can be heard screaming and running riot in the castle's grounds. One tourist had a turn when she was on a guided tour of the tower. In one of the rooms used to imprison the former enemies of the crown, she simply had a breakdown. She started screaming, "There's so much suffering." Apparently the suffering can still be felt in the grounds today. On top of the human spectres, the tower is also said to be haunted by the ghost of a bear. A bear! Coming in at number 9, we have Screaming Montebello Castle. Montebello Castle is located in Switzerland near the border with Italy. Look at it, it is absolutely stunning. This castle was built in the 14th century, so it's had 6 centuries of history. The most enduring tale from the castle is the story of Gwendolina, an albino girl who lived in the castle and was kept there. Being an albino was socially scorned back in those days, and her mother tried to dye her hair with natural herbs to try and give it some colour, but it ended up turning blue, which earned her the nickname of Azarina. She was forbidden to leave the castle, and her father was ashamed of her. One day, under very mysterious circumstances, the girl was killed. Stories do vary as to exactly how, but they all involve her letting out a string of blood-curdling screams. Azarina died on the 21st of June 1375, but her screams can still be heard in the castle today, and are loudest during the summer solstice, the anniversary of her death. Coming in at number 8, we have Himeji Castle in Japan. Himeji Castle was built in the 1300s in a hilltop in the Hygo Prefect. Now, the beautiful castle is home to a dark legend and a wronged ghostly presence. The story goes that once a servant by the name of Okiku was accused of losing valuable crockery, and the loss of the dishes seemed to be reason enough for her to take her life. Okiku was dragged from the kitchen and thrown into a well in the castle grounds, where she died. It is said that her ghost still haunts the castle today. She is said to haunt both the grounds and the kitchen. She can be heard counting dishes while sobbing, and then when she gets to 9, she runs shrieking and shrieking back into the well. Coming in at number 7, we have the ghost of Tuileries Palace. There is a ghost of a red man spotted outside Tuileries Palace in Paris. Now, he was said to be a local butcher. Others say he was a henchman of the 16th century Queen Catherine de Medici. Both legends agree that his name was Jean and that the Queen had him killed because he held way too many secrets. A while after his death, a man was spotted in blood-red attire wandering the gardens. One man who spoke to his ghost, Neuville, reported that Jean swore vengeance to the Queen and the Crown, and the Kingdom of France. Aristocrats of the palace thought that he was a sign of bad luck to come. Indeed, Marie Antoinette supposedly saw his ghost shortly before meeting the guillotine herself. Napoleon, it was said, quite liked him and would talk to him about war strategy. Of course. Those visiting the old palace today occasionally do spot the man in red, which is a bad thing indeed because it's supposed to be that, you know, he's a sign of bad things to come. Coming into number 6, we have the Witches of Mousham Castle. Unternberg, Austria held its own gruesome witch trials between 1675 and 1690. These were the Zuberjackel trials, during which 139 people were killed. Now strangely for witch trials, most of those killed were men, 113 men to be precise. Those killed on suspicion of witchcraft were tortured first, and then afterwards they were burned alive, or hung, or decapitated. As you can imagine, as the scene of hundreds of brutal and unjust murders, the building carries a certain tension. And you can feel that tension even if you don't believe in ghosts, but if you do, it is thought that the spirits of the wronged plague the castle, crying and shrieking at night. One of the murdered was a 10-year-old orphan who was killed simply for being homeless. His cries are said to be the loudest. Beyond the story of the witch trials, there is a tale of werewolves in the palace. Now these stem back to the 1800s. Back then, deer and cattle began showing up dead around the grounds. Suspected werewolves were taken to the dungeon and killed. Some say they hear the growls of torture victims emanating from the dungeons at night even today. Coming in at number 5, we have Frankenstein's Castle. You may recognize the name Frankenstein. Well, it is thought that this castle inspired Mary Shelley's famous novel of the same name. The castle is in the Darmstadt district of Germany, in the Hesse region. The 13th century castle is thought to be haunted by the ghost of Johann Conrad Dippel, a bad man. Dippel was a physician and alchemist who wanted to resurrect the dead. He would rob graves by night and then cut up the bodies and use them in his elixirs and potions. It seems that he wanted to find a potion to resurrect the dead and also to generate immortality. In the end, drinking one of his concoctions actually killed him. It is thought that his spirits haunt the Frankenstein castle today, and so too do the many spirits of his unearthed experiments. He is most frequently spotted between Christmas and New Year sitting on the chapel roof. Coming in at number 4, we have the hellish Hoska Castle in the Czech Republic. Hoska Castle is a Gothic fort in the middle of nowhere, and it is said that even to this day, animals stay away from the castle walls. They prefer to be out in the wild rather than take shelter in the structure. In folklore, the castle is known as the gateway to hell. Legend has it that demons and dragons have been spotted pouring forth from the castle's vile mouth. Indeed, some even say that they've seen ghouls there today. To make matters worse, the castle was taken over by the during World War II. It is said that they tortured hundreds of people there, as well as conducting some really inhumane medical tests. Some think were drawn to the building as it was so hellish, others say it was simply a coincidence. Most do agree, however, that the property is haunted and only a few brave souls will step inside. Those that have claim that they have constantly felt like they're being watched. Coming in at number 3, we have Dracula's Castle. Dracula. No. So Bran's Castle, better known as Dracula's Castle, is a stately 13th century castle linked to the dark legend of Dracula because of its Transylvania location, or modern day Romania. The famous literary vampire aside, the castle was once home to the extra ghoulish Vlad the Impaler, thought to be one of the worst and most evil tyrants to ever live. Vlad the Impaler was alive until 1477, and in his 50-ish years on Earth, he caused literal hell. Many suspected that he himself was a vampire because of the ghoulish way that he would kill people. It is a popular legend that the vampire, or indeed the ghost of Vlad, haunt the castle today. Honestly, how terrifying. Coming in at number 2, we have Fyvie Castle in Scotland. I love Scotland. You will find plenty of ghost stories in Scotland, especially in Scottish castles. A little north of Aberdeen, you will find the breathtaking Fyvie Castle. Fyvie is haunted by the ghost of poor Lilias Drummond, who died of both an empty stomach and an empty heart. It seems that she had an abusive husband who would beat her, and in the end it is said that he locked her in a room and starved her to death in 1601. It seems that Lilias's ghost has haunted the castle ever since, appearance and strangely appears as a green spectre. The night her husband took a new wife, she carved her name in the stone wall of her husband's bedchamber. Apparently this carving can still be seen there today. It seems that her spirit shows up when bad things are about to happen to the castle's owners or to the area surrounding the castle. Now, aside from her mournful spirit, it is also said that the castle is haunted by a trumpeter whose instrument can be heard when death is nearby. Usually I'm like, bring on the trumpets, but not when they signal death. Finally, coming into number 1 of the scariest, most haunted castles in the world, we have Leap Castle in Ireland. Leap Castle is often hailed as one of the most haunted castles in the entire world. The castle in County Offaly dates back to the 1200s and today is in partial ruin. The castle was owned by the O'Carrolls clan, but it was under constant siege. On one occasion, a priest was killed in a brawl between warring clans. Now sadly, his death took place in what is now known as the Bloody Chapel. The priest is said to haunt the chapel today and is pretty unhappy about his death, which, you know, fair. The story of the priest is one of the more notable deaths, but plenty of blood has been shed in the castle at the hands of the attackers and the O'Carrolls. The O'Carrolls were said to have been brutish back in the day, and they were thought to have captured and raped a woman who fell pregnant. When the woman birthed her child, unfortunately, the infant was killed by her captors. It is said that now her angry spirit haunts the castle, wielding a knife ready to stab in a fit of revenge. The worst spirit of all, though, is the spirit of something that locals call it. It is around the size of a sheep and is an unidentified animal, and it has a decaying face. Before you even see it, you will smell it. It comes with a waft of rotting flesh and sulfur, which, ugh. Ghosts, one thing. Ghosts that smell, a whole different ballgame.